Hello. Oh, okay. There we go. Need to do something about that. Actually, yeah, whatever. Okay. I'll figure out how to make it so that people can hear the chat if anyone joins it. Welcome. So you may notice that this does not look like the scheduled stream. So normally at this time we have what's scheduled at this time right now is Daggerheart. We don't have Daggerheart happening right now because it was the first session of the new game, and we had too many people missing. Basically, we had too many people that weren't going to be here today, and that was going to be a problem for that. So, I am in voice chat in the Discord, so if anyone wants to come in and hang out and chat, they can. But basically, what's happening right now is that I've been poking at two projects, a few projects this week. One is that I've been working on the art for Inner Light. So I released Inner Light last week. Oh, it doesn't have me signed in. What the heck? Okay, so I forgot. Trying to log in. Okay, hold on a second. So basically, what happened here was that I was having what I'm doing with right now is that I was having an issue the last few weeks where Streamlabs wasn't ending stream when I told it to, and I don't know why. I could not figure out why, and in trying to fix it, I ended up ultimately having to uninstall and reinstall Streamlabs. But of course, doing that meant that a lot of the stuff, like it being signed in, the chat function of Streamlabs being signed in as me, was no longer the case. So it was broken. Hopefully, it will in fact work this time. So we'll find out if that actually works. Let's see here. But anyway, so what I was saying, I released Inner Light last week. Very excited about that. You can pick it up at the itch.io store that's listed there. It's also on RPG Trader. So go and grab that. It's $1, so that'd be great. But so I've been working on the art for that, so that I can kind of do a re-release later that has a more, because what the book is it has a cover and then it's just text. It's just the text of the rules and that's it. So it has everything that you need to play the game, but it's a very basic document, which is fine. Lots of games get released that way, and people like them. But I really wanted to be able to. I wanted to be able to have it be more more artistic, have more art and layout stuff going on with it. And so I'm working on that as kind of a later edition. And if I get some feedback that there's things to fix, I'll include that in that later update. But anyway, so working on art for that, working on the next video for Introduction to TTRPGs. This is going to be about the role of players and the role of GM, kind of defining what it means to be a player, what it means to be a GM, and how those roles interact for new people. And oh, I didn't have it set to start. I didn't have it set to automatically record. You know what? Because of the thing, I'll have to get the recording from Twitch and share it to YouTube from there. And set this up to automatically record next time. So anyway, and so that was one project, is the art. Another project is obviously the introduction to TTRPGs, and the other is the archetype system, and that's what I'm doing right now. That's what I'm doing here today. So basically, what that is Archetype System is a custom TTRPG system that I was already working on before before Inner Light came about. I hadn't Inner Light was very much a thing that I thought up later, and then just was much faster to make because of how much simpler it is. It is a rules light system, and it was easier to make. So anyway, what I'm doing right now is I have been working on that. I've been working on the archetype system a little bit, and I've transferred it to. So I was kind of putting it up on Discord, or on the. I'm sorry, I was putting it up on the website. I was kind of doing it all there, kind of publicly, creating an SRD. I think that's fine for when it's made, but it was very difficult to actually do it that way. So I've moved the process of making the game into Scrivener, so I'm making it as a book, basically. So real quick, the design concept of the archetype system is that it is built around this idea of battling the machinations of fate. You're designing your character, and you are trying to define who they are in the world and how they're going to impact the world. Meanwhile, the world is trying to enforce a role on you, an idea that kind of it has created for you. And that push and pull is where a lot of the conflict in the game system comes in. So the way it's designed is that the more you pick a specific path and dig into it and commit to it and develop it, the more that path equips you to do bigger things with it, to do more powerful things with it, and to also to succeed at more difficult things, and also to overcome kind of social, or the presses of fate. So basically, let me show you. So archetypes are. This is where the system gets its name. Archetypes are things that you don't choose for yourself. Archetypes are things that are chosen for you. They should be assigned randomly. I think it's part of the challenge. There are ways to not do that, as long as it's not like punitive or ridiculous or whatever. But essentially, where are they? Oh, they're there. Okay. So essentially, you have these archetypes, and they they're going to define what role the fate is trying to cast you in, right? And so, like, if you look through here, here's a list of sample archetypes, right? Um, chosen one. We'll highlight that one. You have a great destiny, a world-shattering task that only you are in line to perform. Your actions will change history. Your ultimate victory will define heroics for generations, and your reward will be great. Add 1d10 to any checks in which you attempt to take command of your allies. Find a unique solution to a problem or pursue your ultimate foe. Subtract 1d10 from any checks in which you follow commands from anyone but a mentor. Use a tried and true solution, or hide from your ultimate foe. So basically, what that means is fate has determined that you are a chosen one. You have been chosen to fulfill some great destiny, whether you want to or not. And you can do whatever you want in game. But if the things that you're doing align with the demands of being a chosen one, then fate will give you boost. It will kind of put wind in your sails as you move in that direction. But if you are trying to make decisions that go against that, then you are going to have to be pushing against the grain. You are pushing against the current of fate in order to do so. And there are some of these that you might want to, like Doomed by the Narrative, right? Doomed by the Narrative. You are a dead man walking. Your death is inevitable, foretold by the stars, woven throughout the story. Your story will be tragic. It will be important. It will be remembered. Your fall will be avenged. It will drive others forward, and they will shake the heavens themselves in your honor, but you will not be there to see any of it. Add 1d10 to any checks that bind you to other characters, increase your risk, or grant you fame, but subtract 1d10 from any checks to maintain your survival, avoid notice, or avoid consequences for taking risks. So, like, you probably do want to resist that one, but that stuff about getting benefits to making friends and building relationships and growing fame can be appealing. And so there's all these like little things throughout this whole thing. These are all sample archetypes. And again, you don't pick these. These are kind of thrust upon you. And you just have to determine what you're going to do with that. You also don't necessarily know what it is that your fate is. Right? So the system doesn't have you. Not only do you not pick your archetype, but fate is not encouraged to tell you what your archetype is. There is a requirement that it be consistent. That is, whoever's playing the role of fate, which is the game master in this game, is called fate. Whoever is playing the role of fate needs to be trusted that they're going to randomly choose just one, archetype for you, and that they're going to apply it fairly and correctly all the time. And you can kind of try to piece together what your archetype is from there, based on the way that it expresses. But you don't necessarily have that information. And you can, obviously, for different settings, not all of these archetypes are going to be applied to every type of game, every genre, every. So Archetype System, that's the other thing. Archetype System is a core system. It is meant to be a base system that we then build games that use it. Kind of like D20. Not like Dungeons and Dragons, but the D20 system itself, right? So you can build different games using D20. Like in during the time of 3rd edition and 3.5, you had a lot of games that were using the same D20, the same 3E kind of D20 system that were very different from each other. D20 Modern was one. D20 Star Trek was a different one. obviously Dungeons and Dragons was yet another, but that like the D20 system or the Powered by the Apocalypse is another one, that type of thing. And so that one's very popular right now, especially among indie gamers, indie game developers. I need to get a hold of. I've never used it. I've never used Powered by the Apocalypse, and I want to. I want to check it out. But anyway, that's a whole other discussion. The point is, Archetype System is that kind of system. It's not a singular game like Inner Light is, or like Dungeons and Dragons is. It is a base system like Powered by the Apocalypse or D20, or Storyteller system, Story Path system is. It's that kind of thing, and then we are going to build games for it. So there are 3 games that I'm developing as I'm working on the Archetype System, so that when the Archetype System comes out, there's 3 games that exist that you can just pick up and play, and okay, here you go. Here's, you can start using it immediately by picking up any one of those 3 games. Those 3 games are one that's based on the Caraxian. It was Tall Tales. It's now the Caraxian. So that would be modern urban fantasy and paranormal horror. There's one that's based on Fatebound, which is a setting that I keep using in D&D type of stuff and Pathfinder, but it is originally a fantasy webcomic that I had. And so that would be mostly high fantasy kind of setting. And then there is what I'm calling Outrageous Fortune, which is essentially designed to operate as a Shakespearean play. So that game is split into like 3 acts, and fate, your archetype exerts more pressure on you as you go through the first act. It's very little pressure. Second act, it's more pressure. Third act, it's a great deal of pressure. As because I think that will help kind of tell stories in the same way that Shakespeare does. And so that's the idea behind that, is that when you sit down to do a campaign using Outrageous Fortune, you finish a story, and if I've designed it right, when you do that story, it feels like you've just participated in a play written by Shakespeare. That's the goal. That's the design guide. That's the guiding, intention behind that game. So Archetype System is the engine for all 3 of those games, and then any other games, most other games that I make, I hope to continue using the Archetype System, and obviously other people can make games for the Archetype System. A lot of the stuff in here, in fact, has there's this creating archetypes under occupations, trainings, alignments, things like that. There's going to be information on how to create those versions of those for your game, so that you can take the Archetype System and build a game using it. So that is part of the design here. The plan for stream today is actually to develop it a little bit, to do some writing on it. But I feel it's necessary to explain it a bit, because I have introduced some ideas of it, but I haven't. It's been a while. And also I want the stuff that I'm doing when I am designing it, writing it on stream to make more sense. So when you're designing your character, you're designing your character theme. So this is your concept. It's something that you just come up with, right? So like it says here, it's gonna be a simple descriptor like Hardboiled Detective or Prince of Denmark. Or it can be a sort of mission statement like Greatest Caribbean Pirate or Aspiring Usurper of the Golden Throne. Whatever that means. The point is to give the sheet and the play style a direction, a rough guide to how this character should be built and how they should view the big picture of the story. So this the concept is, what is my guiding idea behind this character, behind the character that I'm making. Nature is then each game made in the Archetype system has a central power structure of the setting. It assumes power structures of the setting. And it forces you to have one of those defined. For Outrageous Fortune, right, that is mostly narrative kind of it's well, okay. The power structure of the setting in Outrageous Fortune, for instance, tends to be social, right? It's a social order. And so you're a merchant because that is your relationship to the social order. You're a noble, you're, a fae or something like that. And so these natures are roles that you serve, roles that you exist in, that define how the fundamental power structure of the setting, which in Shakespearean era is the very kind of, England at that time, whatever time period that, I don't remember what the name of that time period was, but Shakespearean times. Shakespearean England, social structures. And so, like I said, merchants and nobles and peasants and, these different classes that existed. It was very class based. And it's, from what I understand, the UK still is very class based. And so your nature is going to be that. It's going to be your class, basically. Whereas in the Caraxiid, the fundamental power structure of the setting is the metaphysical realm, the forces of magic that dictate how power itself actually moves around the world. And so in that one, your nature is something more like, are you human, or are you a spirit? Are you a ghost? Are you a fae? Are you, some kind of elemental thing? Are you a half human, half spirit? That type of thing. So the natures are slightly more like races in old D&D, or species in modern D&D, or ancestries. Whereas, like I said, in Outrageous Fortune, they're more social classes. Fate Bound, I think that I have to check. I don't remember if I wrote down anywhere what they're going to be for Fate Bound. I don't know if I've decided that yet. But that's the idea. Is the setting defines the power structures. Your relationship to the power structure defines your nature. Expression is the way that you carry yourself, or the way that you choose to express yourself in that setting. So, like in the Caraxiid, you might be a type of spirit. You might be a cryptid. Cryptid is a nature in the Caraxiid, and so you might decide that your expression is Mothman, is listed there, or Bigfoot or something. But you might decide that some of these get weird, like you might have a expression of sailor. You're human, and that's your expression. You're a sailor, and you look like a sailor, and you act like a sailor. 80s Black British anarcho-punk, or the Platonic form of chair, or whatever. It depends on what you are. Whereas, like it says down here, though, that doesn't have to be strictly accurate. If you are a peasant who is trying to look merchant class in the Outrageous Fortune, that's your expression. Your expression is merchant, but your nature is peasant. And so you have the kind of difficulties that peasants have, but you're trying to present yourself as a merchant, and that's going to come up to how people see you, and that's going to impact how you actually navigate and what sorts of opportunities are available to you and stuff like that. But so is your nature, and so like it's that kind of interplay of those things. Alignment. Um, as it says, it's how you access that stuff. Um, so like in Outrageous Fortune, it's probably gonna be like guilds. Like, you know, if you are a merchant, maybe you have a relationship with maybe you're part of a you know, jewelers guild or something, and so you and these other jewelers all work together to, you know, petition the crown for things and to, you know, make sure that you have the right amount of gold coming in and to make this jewelry gems and stuff like that, and to make, you know, trade arrangements with the East India Company that you maybe couldn't have made on your own and stuff like that. So like all of that stuff, that is how you engage with the power structure. Uh, Whereas in the Caraxian, that is the kind of magic. There's six, eight. I have to check my notes. There's 6 or 8 um, elements to magic, and you are aligned with one, and then so that's going to define how hard it is for you to cast certain other ones. And then, like I said, archetype we've already talked about. And so when you take all those things together, that designs your character theme. Okay, here's my concept. Here's my nature and how I'm expressing that nature, and how that nature, what avenue I'm using to have that nature and expression interact with the power structures of the setting, and what role those power structures are trying to enforce upon me. That tension is your character theme. Um, and then you design your actual person from there. You know, you have your traits, your physical traits, your mental traits, your social traits, uh, and then you pick your trainings. This is where things get really complicated for the. So this is, it's very skill tree based um, in the archetype system. So you pick up this skill, and then you pick up a sub skill in something else, then you pick up a sub skill off of that. But the catch is that in this system, doing so makes, the more specified it is, the more detailed it is, the more specific it is, the better, the bigger die you roll with. Wait, no. Yeah. Wait. Oh no, that's skills. Where are the skills? I don't make a chapter for skills. Oops. That's pretty important. See, this is why I'm trying to do this. Why did I not have that? Okay. Okay, we're gonna put that over here. Okay. I'm gonna have to write up a whole thing about that. I guess I didn't have that on the website. So basically I was just copy pasting everything that I put up on the website, and then I didn't have that? How did I not have that? Oh, skill trees. Oh, I forgot to, I didn't finish copying that over. Oh goodness. Okay. That's what happened there. Okay. Yeah, so I did write that down. I did have stuff about that written. I hadn't put it all in here yet. I haven't put up. There's a bunch of stuff I haven't put in here yet. Okay, I'm not nearly as far along in copying everything over as I thought I was. All right, so so training is basically backgrounds. What type of training have you done? Prior to game, occupation is what your actual job is or what you do. Um, there are different types of there's controlling occupations, equipping occupations, fighting occupations, informing occupations, and restoring occupations. I'll get to those later. Augments, they're like feats or advantages, and then there's character advancement. So skills. Oh, and I equipped yet as well. So skills. Okay. So let's say you want to do something that you have no skill in, right? You want to drive a car, and you have no ability, you have no training in driving a car, operating a vehicle at all. You have no skill points spent on that. Well, you're probably going to run dexterity, right? Because you have to steer the car. But the traits are all modifiers. So you roll your dice and then you add your trait as just a static number. So if your dexterity is 6, you're going to roll your die and add 6 to this thing, right? If you have no skill at driving at all, if you have a dexterity of 6, you roll 1d4, add 6 to it. Now for basic driving around, that's probably enough, right? But if you want to steal a motorcycle and pull a stunt with it, while you're trying to escape police or something, the difficulty is going to be higher than 10. And therefore, you're not going to do it. You're not going to be able to reach that. The D4 plus 6 is incapable of getting you a roll good enough to succeed at that check. However, if you have, say, 5 ranks in drive, which is a very general skill, that means that you now, instead of using 1d4 plus 6, you're now using 5d6s. So 5d6s, add them up. It's not counting successes. It's not that type of dice pool. It's an add them up dice pool. So 5d6s plus 6 because of your dexterity, right? If you have the sub-skill motorcycles, right? If you have 4 ranks in that, say, instead you're going to use 4d8s. If you have 4 ranks in the sub-skill like stunt motorcycles, you're instead going to use 10s, d10s. So now it's 4d10s. If you by chance have if you have the highly specialized skill that most applies to this setting, you're trying to do something. So let's say there's physical sciences, biology as a sub-skill. Sub-skill of that is marine biology. Sub-skill of that is cetacean studies or whatever. So you study whales. And the check is specifically about studying whales. Instead of being stuck using physical sciences, like if somebody else has physical sciences but they don't have biology, they have chemistry or whatever, they can just roll physical sciences with the d6s and try to get the same result. But you, because you have cetacean studies, are going to roll d12s to try to meet this DC. So that means that the more focused your study is, the larger dice you're going to roll, and that also means that the higher DCs you're capable of reaching. and the better chances of success you have in general. It also means that so the example I use in here is biochemistry. Um, so yeah, there are going to be things that come up in game that if you are using a lesser skill, a less specific skill, or you're unskilled in at all, you can't even attempt because you are mathematically excluded from success. You cannot succeed at it. And no amount of you can't just raise your intelligence high enough to succeed at anything, all science checks, because you're going to get somebody. You can't raise it high enough to have the skills cap out. So like this D12 dice pool, someone with 5 D12s, they're looking at rolling a max of 60 plus their intelligence. So to them, a DC of 40 is pretty reasonable. It's not easy, but it's reasonable. Your intelligence score can't get high enough. You cannot have an intelligence score of 40. So the D4 is never going to get you there. So that's part of that. But that also means, so remember going back to the archetypes, if you were trying to, let's say you were trying to resist, let's say you have an archetype, let's say you were doing Doomed by the Narrative. Let's say your archetype was Doomed by the Narrative that I read earlier. You're trying to do this stunt, and you're trying to make sure that you survive that stunt, right? Doomed by the Narrative says you're doing something flashy and something showy and something that's going to draw a lot of attention to yourself that has a high risk of death, right? Succeeding at that is actually going to go against your archetype. It's going to go against that Doomed by the Narrative archetype. So you're going to have a minus 1d10 on that check. Well, if you were rolling a d4 plus 6, that minus d10 is suddenly very dangerous, right? It can make you it can completely negate your entire roll. It can give you a negative result. Whereas if you were rolling d10s, right, you were rolling 5 d10s plus 6 minus 1 d10. Well, that's easier to absorb. It's easier for you to kind of resist that force of fate because you have focused so much more on being able to do this specific thing. So that's how that works. That I need to copy some of this stuff over. I need to put this stuff into the book so I know what I'm doing. So as you see, you can also get a lot of ranks in it. So if you really just dump all your points into one skill, you're talking about, you can get 30 or 40 ranks in a skill. If you're doing that with D8s or D10s or something, it's gonna be noticed. It's gonna be a lot of dice you're rolling. Let me see here. I might have to change this actually because I don't think I'm going to be keeping this picture that I used on the website. Okay, so I will. Let me see. How many skills trees do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. Okay. Focus on creative endeavors. Focus on music. Player performance. Right. Performance somewhere else. Okay. The word is the wrong place. Okay. What's next? Attack. Obviously, so the point of all this is that I have to. I'm bringing all these things into the document, and then I have to go through and edit a lot and write a lot more for things to make this an actual functional source book, basically. Might add some. Might add some secondary stuff, but we'll see. I was gonna call this one a cult. I don't know why I didn't. Oh, because I made a cult of knowledge subskill. That's why. Um. Okay. Okay. Mhm. There we go. Alright. So yeah, basically, defense is active in this system. So when you do combat, um, you roll to attack, someone else rolls to defend themselves, and then you go that way. So it's not just like a straight AC like it is in D&D or stuff like that. It is an active process like it is in stuff like World Arts. Yeah, espionage, obviously, identify and gather information on things. That's going to include your investigation, your intimidation, your persuasion, your perception, stuff like that. And then can get into things like hacking and stuff like that. Knowledge, knowing stuff. Oh, so I have physical sciences as one. Eh, I'll have to check. Oh, yeah. I have to work on that a little bit. Okay, so we have. Part of the problem here is that I have. It's been so long since I was working on this system that I don't remember a lot of this. So I thought there was like a drive skill. But there's not. There's operate, which includes driving, among other things. Performance, obviously, very active. Like performance arts. So there's that. Okay. And then I'll have to revisit that and see if there's any kind of skill trees that I need to add that I don't have yet. Oh, okay. Equipment. What do I have here? What do I have? What did I even write for that? Equipment is heavily setting dependent, as some things are more common or possibly completely unavailable in different places and times. Each piece of equipment has a technology level attached to it. Games will rank the availability of different technologies based on the technology level of the setting. Okay, so like, um, Outrageous Fortune is probably going to be very low tech. Fatebound would be pretty low tech. Sci-fi would be very high tech. Whereas we get into stuff like, the Caraxia, just the stuff that we have right now. Okay. Do I have that button? Okay. Did I copy anything down for combat? And updates this. There's the combat page. Copy everything. Oh yeah. So I was just talking about this in on Blue Sky, but the combat turn uses a tick wheel. Um, that is something that Scion uses, and that's what we were talking about. Me and somebody else were talking about. Scion uses it, and we love it. It's just there's a chapter for Fate. Um, there. Yeah. Okay. Um, yeah. Game Master is called Fate. Fate's role, as in other games, is to set the story. They also maintain character archetypes and enforce the details of those archetypes. So that is the biggest thing relevant to this specific system. Okay. I'm not going to make like a separate book for Fate. I don't think that's strictly necessary. I'm gonna have to come up with so much equipment, or like vague descriptions of equipment, or things like that. Okay. Whew. Skill trees are coming along. Occupations. I haven't done anything for occupations. I've also been. A lot of this stuff is written as assuming that you get levels. And I haven't. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that. Actually, I'm not sure if this is going to be a level-based game or not. It might. It might be. Might keep the levels. It's just easy. It's easy to split things up if I have it by levels. Okay. There's 4. Right. Strength, endurance, dexterity. Intelligence, awareness, memory, cunning. And I will describe what each of those does in more detail. Charisma, manipulation, and charisma. Okay. That's created. These are going to be tricky to write up for the general system because very few things actually carry over to everything. Oh, these are mostly just going to be rules for how to make them, I guess. And then there'll also be samples. I'll put samples in. Spellcasting is complicated. You know what? So let's see what I put to fit the traits. So physical traits. So yeah, manipulate their environment in control precise ways versus manipulating their body. So that is like dexterity is steering, using a steering wheel or you know, fiddling with a dial or stuff like that. Whereas agility is hardcore, basically. Um, Mental traits: intelligence, ability to process and use information, awareness, defines their ability to gather information, memory, store and recall information, and kind of apply information quickly without the benefit of careful consideration. If you don't have time to think deeply about it, it's kind of social traits: charisma, draw or divert the attention of others, as well as foster social connection. Manipulation finds their ability to use the force of their will to get active results out of others. So you don't use charisma to, in this system, you don't use charisma to like convince somebody to, let you into a secure facility. You use manipulation. Empathy. Character's empathy defines their ability to sense and understand the desires, intentions, experiences, and needs of others. How well do you read them? And presence defines their ability to gain advantage in circumstances by instilling fear or awe in others. How much does the force of your personality bear on the situation around you? That's what presence is. I really I set out to write during this, but didn't realize there was so much stuff I had to still bring into the document, which threw my whole plan off. And also, I'm exhausted, partly from dealing with migraine for a large chunk of the day. So I think I'm going to have to end stream, even though I did not accomplish what I set out to accomplish. Sorry about that. Oh well. Well, thanks for hanging out, though. Come see us on Discord. Join us tomorrow for Monster Maker with Teach. I'm going to be designing another creature. That'll be fun. The Dragonmite that was designed last week, that is now available for free on itch.io and RPG Trader. Basically, what's going to happen is, I'll explain this in more detail during that stream tomorrow. But basically, what's going to happen is the 5e stat block and the sketch and a basic write-up of the creature is going to be available for free each week. As I finish that, I'm going to put it up online, and you can download those. As I kind of get a little pack of them, like, I don't know, maybe like a dozen or so. When I have like a dozen or so together, and I've finished the artwork, and I've worked on adapting those stat blocks to other systems like Pathfinder and stuff like that. Once I've done that, I will have bestiaries up. So that will be the 5e, bestiary of things that I've made. Volume 1 will be like the first dozen or so. And Dragonmite with finalized, fully rendered art will be in there. Any updates I've made to it will be in there, as well as 11 other creatures done the same way. And that won't be free, but it'll be cheap. That, and then the the path. There'll be the D&D version, the 5e version. There'll be a 3.5 version. There'll be a Pathfinder version. There'll be a few other versions as I get those made. But in the meantime, if you're playing a 5e game, you can grab the creature, any creatures that are available right away, and start fiddling with them. Start using them in your game and seeing how they work, and give me feedback and stuff like that, and just kind of have them available. And as I said, itch.io and the RPG Trader site. If you look for Rabbit Haberdashery on either of those, there's the itch link. I don't have a RPG Trader call out, command in chat. I don't have a chat command for RPG Trader yet. I need to make one. But there's the itch.io store. So swing by, check out some of those things, and also look at some other stuff there, because Inner Light is there, and some compendiums that I've been making are there and stuff like that. So you can check out all that stuff. And so tomorrow will be Monster Maker with Tej. We'll be doing that stream tomorrow. Next week is going to be hopefully the official launch of the Daggerheart campaign, Sablewood Messengers. That was supposed to be tonight. A lot of people weren't available. We had to push it off. But next week, hopefully that'll happen, and we can dive into that game then. And then later on this summer, hopefully, maybe fall, but probably summer. After that Daggerheart story is done, we'll be bringing back Fatebound Trade Winds and Clarence House Cyberpunks, and obviously the replacements is always available. Although we have to make new characters for that, because we're talking about moving that to Daggerheart. So Fatebound was moved to Pathfinder. We're talking about moving replacements to Daggerheart. Clarence House Cyberpunks is Shadowrun. It's gonna stay Shadowrun. So assuming we can get Shadowrun to work on the Foundry, because it doesn't work on Foundry anymore. I haven't checked that actually this week. I need to check that later on. Anyway, so thanks for joining me. Keep an eye out for all that stuff, and hopefully Thursday, the video will go up for the next video in the Introduction to TTRPGs series. Like I said, discussing what it means to be a player, what it means to be a game master, how those two roles interact. That series is very introductory. Like, you're new to tabletop RPGs, you don't know what's going on. People are assuming that you know a bunch of terminology and a bunch of ideas that you are very new to you, that's what this series is for. Is walking you through the absolute basics. Um, I would encourage people who have been playing for a while to watch them as well, just because it might help you to explain to people i- at your tables that maybe are missing some part of that, or maybe it'll fill some gaps for you. But also there are just some ideas that people have about what how these games are supposed to work that I think came about because people were expected to just figure it out on their own without any help. And some of those ideas may be part of the problem that you're having problems at your table. And so if you get this other perspective, maybe it would help, maybe it won't. But um, maybe check those videos out and see if that is the case. See what it does for you. Maybe it'll do nothing for you. Maybe it will help you with your game. Maybe it'll help you explain things to other new people, or maybe you are a new person and you need this foundation. You need this groundwork done. Whatever it is, those videos are there. That's gonna be a whole series. Second video going up is scheduled to go up Thursday, so keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, thank you very much. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. I'll see you tomorrow, and if I don't, then if you are in the U.S., happy Independence Day weekend, and we will see you Monday for Daggerheart. Have a good night. Nope, the end stream button still isn't working. Okay, I gotta figure that out. Let me try. All right, gotta do it this way.